We are back for another incredible episode of Medical Experts in Football. I'm Taiwo Adeshigben, your host. And here on this podcast, I interview a number of medical professionals around the world, and we not only talk culture, but soccer medicine. So today's guest is a Croatian you could probably spot carrying his own espresso and coffee machine through TSA coming to America. Yeah, because they're kind of picky about coffee like that. Now, of course, we talked more about other topics, from his job as a pediatric surgeon to his experiences working as a Croatian national team and presently as a UEFA chief medical officer. With that, here's Dr. Zoran Bahtijarević. Before I talk about sports medicine, I always like to get a general idea of my guests and talk a little bit about culture because I love traveling, I love food, and I think some of my listeners also enjoy that too. So first, I hear that Croatia is a tough language to learn, but many tourists seem to do okay traveling there because you all speak English. Now, I did hear you speaking to Luka in Croatia, and it seems like you have pretty good English. Is that a fair assessment if you were to go to Croatia?
First of all, thank you for this. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me there. I did some inquiry, and I learned that your postcard about your podcast, and I love what you're doing. One, two, Croatian language is quite difficult to learn. It has it's complicated, sometimes even for Croatians. And then if you put in the dialogues inside. The dialects inside, it's really sometimes tricky. But it's true, I wouldn't say most of the people, but majority of people at the moment do speak some level of English. That goes especially for kids, because after watching, when I was young, we watched Cartoon Network, but I'm sure today there is a number of YouTube channels and everything else that grow up on a English series or English speaking talking series, cartoons and stuff like this. So most of the people speak English. I would say they also very often speak additional languages based on where they come from. So it's Italian at the seaside in Istria, it's German in the northern parts of Croatia, in some regions even French. So we kind of, it's improving, yeah. We are speaking many languages.
Well, how many languages do you speak?
Only Croatian and English. I'm studying French at the moment because I recently moved to Nyon. We make fun out of it, Luka and me, because Luka, my medical assistant that I was talking to, he speaks Serbian and I speak Croatian. But this is, it's not politically to say it's the same language, but it's a very similar language. So when you say it this way, I speak also Bosnian and Montenegrin and all these languages that are a result of the breakup of former Yugoslavia, but they are basically the same language or very similar languages.
Yeah, because Serbian, technically, the written language is different from
So
Croatian,
they use Cyrillic, and we use Latin in writing, but I'm experienced enough not to say old, to avoid saying old enough to learn Cyrillic letter when I was a kid in elementary school, because that was obligatory. So I know how to read Cyrillic.
Very cool, very cool. Well, yeah. I do want to show you this because I don't know if this is true, but I do have coffee and water, because they say in Croatia, whenever you order coffee, they automatically give you water. Here in the States,
of water.
Is that true?
It's true, but because there's a different definition of coffee in Croatia in the States. My first cultural shock when I was coming to States back in '95, I landed at JFK immediately because it was a night flight, went to buy a cup of coffee, and they asked me whether I want a small, medium, or large. And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, coffee is something this big. We are as very close to Italians. I would say they invented espresso, cappuccino, espresso, and macchiato. But I think we have developed this to the art level, because we really enjoyed our espresso and cappuccino. But when you're at home, and then you will automatically get the glass of water. So when you ask for coffee in Croatia, they're going to ask you, if you don't specify, you're going to get simple espresso.
Oh, okay.
That's why. And then in homes, you can very often get offered to get the Turkish coffee, which is coffee that you make yourself out of coffee grains and boiled water there in a Turkish style coffee. It's usually also very, very strong.
Okay.
Far from American filtered coffee.
Yeah, okay. Which is why they give you the water to really help the system.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you said you came to New York.
Back in 95, I spent a couple of months at Yale, New Haven, during my residency of pediatric surgery, but we'll come back to that later. We had the opportunity to spend some time in the United States through the nice people that came here came there to Croatia to help us in facing the post-war or during the war consequences on people. And then I ended up spending a couple of months at the plastic and reconstructive surgery at Yale, New Haven Hospital, which was for me eye-opening and pretty much defining throughout my life later on. And then I've been to many places in the States after that.
Cool. So it sounds like you enjoy coming to my home country.
I love coming to your home country. I love States. I mean, it's funny when people ask you, how is it in America? It's, I tell them, guys, there's so many different places and so many differences that there is no such thing as America, because you share the common, you are all Americans, but it's really depends whether you go to the, Eastern coast or Western coast, whether you go to the Midwest, North, Northeast or Southeast. And so it's really different country, but that's what I love about States. It's that, there's first of all really a melting pot, although this is something that people use as as a definition, but without any wish to sound like repeating something. You are melting pot, one, and two, it's so many different places, and that's why it's so beautiful.
Well, you're always welcome. I like that compliment. I grew up in Texas and Georgia. Southern people, at least I am, were pretty open and very friendly. So yes, you're always welcome down south. But enough about the States. People want to know more about Croatia. This is obviously a European country that's near the Adriatic Sea, which apparently has many beautiful beaches. What would you consider the most beautiful feature of your home country?
It's small, but you have everything. So in north of Croatia, you have, how would I call it? Like not prairies, but you have flats, and you have beautiful food production there, almost ecological food. Then also you have a mountainous part. You have a little hilly part that's around Zagreb that I come from. Then you have mountains. Then you have rivers and lakes. And then you have that's something that everybody knows is kind of, whether we are famous for, it's Adriatic Sea and the beautiful coast, where you have 1,200 islands. Most of them are only rocks, but some of them are really nice islands. And it's a beautiful country for sailing, enjoying food, enjoying drinks. We have excellent wines as well, then other drinks as well. And enjoying warm. We also consider ourselves as a southern country. In European terms, we are. Like all the Mediterraneans, we are open-minded and welcoming, and just like you. Talkative, obviously, as you can see. Not as talkative as Italians, though, but still.
Not as talkative as Italians. Interesting.
No, I'm kidding. I'm try to beat Italians.
Yeah, I've had a couple of Italian guests on my podcast, and they were fairly friendly too. Kind of cool to see that, because you all are neighboring countries. They do say that Croatian food, you said you guys are big on food, but your food kind of is influenced by Turkish, Central, and European cuisine. Is that accurate? And if so, what does a typical dish, like a signature dish of Croatia, taste like?
There is no such thing, because it's you're right. We have been influenced by many different cuisines. Basically, one of the things we are kind of, although being very small, melting pot of genes, because many armies ran over Croatia over the past thousands of years, and each and every army left some of their gene pool in our gene pool. So I would say southern parts of Croatia pretty much are Mediterranean food, influenced by Italian, of course. We love pasta and we love fish and we love fresh vegetable and fresh fruits. And it's true for all Croatia. But also northern parts of Croatia were influenced by Turkish cuisine, northeast one, by Hungarian cuisine, by German cuisine, and also French army that passed through at a certain point with time with Napoleon through Croatia, and actually the government left some of their recipes as well. So our cuisine is same melting pot like as our gene pool as well.
Interesting. Okay. So there's probably not a real signature dish that you would say, hey, try this in Croatia because it's...
So I would tell you I eat in some parts of Croatia, northern parts of Croatia, especially around Zagreb, I would tell you eat turkey and mlinci. Mlinci are a special kind of pasta, homemade. And that will be a signature dish. Then also in that part of Croatia that I come from is štrukli. That's also pasta with cheese usually, typical for that part of Croatia. But then also in the, say, northeast part of Croatia, you can use cured meat called kulen, but also sausages with, so these are really our signature dish. And when you go down to the seaside, you would have things like excellent prosciutto that is different than the Italian prosciutto, completely different way of curing it. Even in the different regions of Croatia, you have a different style of it. And then also in southern parts of in Dalmatia, where I was born, there is a food dish protected by UNESCO called soparnik. It's also based on pasta and mangold or Swiss chard in it. A very simple dish, but excellent. One of my favorites. And then, of course, anywhere in Croatia, people love roasted lamb. When you roast lamb on a stick in the really open fire, and that's something we roasted animals. We are meat-eating country.
Yeah. Well, I know I tell you that this is about culture, but I personally ask about food because I love food. And when I go to these countries, I want to be able to get right to the good stuff, get it down my throat, and be a happy camper.
You should really let me know when you're coming to Croatia, and then you're going to get more tips.
Oh, I'm excited. Well, right now, and we'll get to it, but right now you're actually in Switzerland, so
yes,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, okay.
So in Zagreb, the capital of Croatia, this is a tricky question because I know it's a generalization, but for a foreigner that has never, ever stepped foot in the capital city, what do you think would surprise a foreigner most about maybe the way Croatians live their life?
Our life is in Zagreb pretty much Central European style, influenced obviously by Austro-Hungarian Empire. So Zagreb is very often referred as a little Vienna because it has a lot of Austrian-style buildings and the same history. But people have usually come with the prejudices, and then they really love when they visit Zagreb the mixture of the Mediterranean nature of the culture, which is living in the open spaces, enjoying company, enjoying this great Italian espresso or coffee. I told you we are very picky about our coffee. One of the things that I brought here to Switzerland is my espresso machine and my espresso coffee, because we are picky about it. And then you should definitely go when you come to Zagreb, visit the, of course, Central Square, and just above Central Square is the Grand Market, old marketplace. And there you're going to meet original Zagreb people and original Zagreb aunties that are selling homemade cheese and sour cream and eggs and chicken and vegetables. And that's, from there I learned whenever I visit a place, I go first to the marketplace.
Get some real nice food. Okay. Was soccer a thing you were brought into at a young age, or what?
First of all, I'll have to correct you and pardon me for that. It's football. American football is
American
football is a handball that is merely played using hands and occasionally, very occasionally, very short contacts with foot. Having jokes, putting joke aside. Let's put the joke aside. Football was part of upbringing of almost every Croatian, especially when I was young. We play football. Well, even now kids are playing it, but with, I would say, computerization of the nation and the world, more kids are playing now FIFA Pro games and stuff like this on their joysticks than really going out and playing it. Actually, immediately after returning from war, because I was spent some time at the front line. Immediately after that, I became my residency of pediatric surgery in Children's Hospital Zagreb, and there, to me, I still cannot explain why, there was a big concentration of pediatric surgeons that were doing sports medicine, because at the time we didn't have a sports medicine as a special residency or specialization. It was merely people loved to do it and learned by doing it, and that's actually how I learned doing sports medicine, by doing it. And then at that time, so small Children's Hospital Zagreb, pediatric surgeons were taking care about the Croatian national football team, about Croatian national basketball team, which at the time was the one that was playing finals in the Olympic Games in Barcelona against the first dream team of US, if you remember, the real dream team. And then also Olympic team, even Croatian national theater, hockey team, grass hockey team, handball team, and some important clubs around in Zagreb and around Zagreb. So that's how I got involved. I was actually drawn to it by some of my chiefs, let's put it this way.
And we're going to go back to your off time during your residency to become a surgeon. But before that, I am curious, was this, obviously you said that there wasn't a huge sports medicine presence at the time, so you learned by doing. I'm wondering, how did that look like? And I can't imagine you having this vision of being heavily involved in sports medicine at a young age, or did you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I had that vision, to be honest. That vision, I would say that my life led me into it, guided me into it. I got drawn to it everybody wanted to take part of the sports because we had a very, as you are aware of, we are very successful country in the sense of sport, although very small, with less than 4 million people. We still have either had or have a number of world records or world champions, European champions, and then finally last two World Cups, Croatia was extremely successful on the FIFA World Cups. In that sense, I think every sports was part of our lives, and it was normal to take part in it. And I used to do sports when I was younger, and then it was normal to become a sport doctor as well. And then as I was drawn into it, I started as under 16 doctor of Croatian national teams, which kind of fitted into my pediatric surgery career as well. And after that, climbed the ladder of success, and from 92 to 2000, I was a doctor of more or less all under 16, under 18, under 20 selections of a Croatian Football Federation. You have to understand that at the time we were a young country, just in the war and then immediately after the war. So we were basically building it from the scratch. Then as of 2000 to 2002, I was a team doctor of under 21 team of Croatia. And then as of 2002, I have been invited to be a doctor of Croatian national team, which I have been until last September, when I resigned because of this function that I'm holding at the moment.
Cool. And we'll talk about that. So it's very interesting because, like you stated, after the war, y'all were really small. Things were still really growing, but you still managed to climb the ladder. How did you set yourself up to almost create these opportunities to, like you then mentioned, to work for that full national team?
So I think, I think life I love story about the Greek myth about God Kairos. Kairos is a god of a happy moment. Kairos has one little I don't know how you call it when you have something like your hair like swirls like this. So he has this piece of hair, long hair on his head, and when a god of lucky moment is passing by you, you have that one single chance to grab him by this piece of his hair, and if you manage, then you have luck. If you miss it, luck is gone. I have to say I was basically lucky because I have picked Kairos hair more often than not.
Okay. But how do you even put yourself in that position to get lucky that much?
Of course. Luck is also, you have to kind of produce or provoke luck, I would say, in a sense that you have to do that. Well, I have to say I owe this to my parents first, because both of my parents come from very simple families and climbed very high in their careers. And both me and my brother were taught to work hard. We were brought up not to expect easy awards, or we were not brought up like many people, like I call it hit and run policy. You just do something because easy come, easy go. And we were brought up that if you work hard and if you invest a lot of effort, both by studying and working, the award and appraisals will come. And when I turn back to my life, this is showcase example of this. It's if you work hard, if you stand behind your knowledge, and if your knowledge stands behind you, if you bring your knowledge as your shield in a sense, experience as well, expertise as well. If you speak truth, even when this truth is not welcome, you're going to earn respect.
Yeah. With that knowledge, with working hard, you mentioned that your family kind of instilled the whole simplicity. How integral is that when it comes to being in a highly stressful environment, expected to be at the top of your game, whether that's your doctor trying to provide care or you're the chief officer? How does that help you in your role?
First of all, my dual career of pediatric surgeon helped me to put things in perspective, in a sense that I have seen kids dying through my career, children dying. Unfortunately, children do die. Unfortunately, medicine is not God, is not almighty, and medicine also has flaws and mistakes, and I don't know, it's not, as I said, not almighty. And then you lose lives. That's a fact. I mean, death is a part of human life. But that gave me a great, even being in the war, gave me a great perspective on other sides of life. And then also experience through football showed me, every often and every now and then a coach come or press even make a illusion that this game is the most important game of a history. And there is no such game after that. This is the most important game. And when you lose enough most important games and realize that life is going on, that puts you, and there will be another most important game, and there was another historical match, and there will be another opportunity. That puts things in the perspective. So the perspective of being on the bench for 30 years and in the hospital for 30 years gives me a lot of advantages being a chief medical officer. Now, when I talk to the people that are on the bench, we talk same language.
I see. Okay.
And also, when you talk to the managers that don't have such experience, then you have experience to base your evidence, to base your opinions or whatever you want to do on the experience of 30 years on the bench or in the hospital.
Okay. Now, you mentioned something that I don't think many are aware. Like you mentioned, kids die just like adults die. As a pediatric surgeon, I know you probably aren't operating now given your position, but now that you've stepped away, how do you see the experiences being a pediatric surgeon, like some of the skills translating to kind of your role now? I know that you said that obviously whole putting things into perspective, but are there certain qualities specifically as a surgeon that maybe has helped you in this current position?
Of course, behavior under stress, because part of the surgeon training is, or actually experience or growing up of a surgeon is to handle stress. The more experienced surgeon you become, the more stress you will be exposed to, because obviously surgeries will be more demanding or more complicated. And that management of stress helped me a lot. Also, as I said, sometimes that I often use here in UEFA, and everybody's laughing about it, but I really mean it. When we are really sometimes over dramatic, I tell them, guys, this is a game. In the name of it, it's a game. Did anybody die? No. So of course, it's much more complicated than this. And of course, it's a bit, football being extremely popular, influential, watched, observed in most of the world, is also under huge stress to send the right messages and to set the right example.
Gotcha. But early on in your career, dealing with stress, what was the most challenging thing for you to get through those moments?
So for me, I quit doing surgery less than a year ago. I was on May 13th. It was Friday. So there's a lot of symbolism. Friday the 13th when I quit my surgical career. For me, in that sense, the most challenging things was talking to parents and telling them bad news. Or even for me, emotionally, as a person, a very emotional person as I am, an empathetic person, the most challenging moments were when you had to talk with the parents about the donation of the organs, about potential organ donation, which is basically sending them two bad news at the same moment, that the kid is dead, and then there is a possibility that they will donate the organs to make other kids, give other kids chances to live. These moments, and then especially after parents have decided to do that, which I'm extremely proud of the Croatian people, because I don't know if you know, but Croatian people is the most successful per capita in organ donation. So how would you say their per capita? So per one person in Croatia, we are the country with most organ donations in the world, which means that our people are, well, I think it's something that the result of the very good programs that we have, explaining people that by giving organs of our dearest, we are giving chances to somebody else's dearest to live. And in that sense, I'm extremely proud of Croatian people. But still, so we were very successful in this, talking with parents, but very often I have seen parents saying goodbye to a kid. And that's for me was the most emotional thing, but something that leaves traces on you to the rest of your life and changes you as a person for better, I hope.
Now, Zoran, you were working as a pediatric surgeon for 30 years. Was this feeling something that you were experiencing early on? Because in between that time, it also looked like you were also working with the Croatian National Team.
Yes.
Did you eventually see yourself moving away from surgery because of that emotional toll, or did you sense that there was something more you wanted to do?
So I don't know. I mean, thanks again to my family, especially my wife and kids, who showed extreme amount of understanding. I was able to pursue both careers of a Croatian national team doctor and a successful pediatric surgeon quite successfully, and for over 30 years, basically in parallel. And it wouldn't be possible without sacrifice of my great family, especially my wife, who is a great person. I usually say that the marriage is like a lottery, because you wake up after a few years and realize who you're married to, because when all the firework of emotion is gone, you finally realize who you are. Well, in that lottery, there is a Euro jackpot, and usually you read in a newspaper about some guys from Northern Europe that won the Euro jackpot. But in that lottery, I am that Northern European that won the Euro jackpot, in a lottery of
Amazing.
marriage. I'm extremely proud that, and happy and lucky that my wife is such a nice person who enabled this. So that's one. And two, I'm close to 60. I'm turning 59 very soon, a few days. My surgical career, thank you for that, but my surgical career was coming to the place where I needed to think of kind of a transition anyway. This opportunity came, just by chance through COVID-19. This opportunity to work for UEFA came. And then I realized that there is a still possibility for me to use the, say, final years of my professional career to make a difference again in my life. It actually happened all by chance due to the fact that I was a doctor of obviously very successful national team. I started cooperating with UEFA. I became a member of the UEFA Medical Committee. I also became a doping control officer and so on and so on. And then when COVID hits us, Tim Meyer, chairman of the medical committee, and me were talking. So everybody stops and we started to think, what now? What will now happen with football? Our first or second love. What will we do now? And then we started working on the return to play protocol for football because unlike many, we were not that optimistic that it will last only a couple of weeks or a couple of months. We were both either informed optimists or pessimists in the sense that we thought it's going to stay, the COVID will stay a couple of years. And then we started working on the protocol. And obviously, this protocol was just recently on the medical symposium, I said we, in a sense, created a history because UEFA was the first international sporting organization that started international sport. But back in August in 2020, we completed season 2020, when most of the sports were blocked, even on the national level. We restarted sport. And we managed to go to using this document and its ramifications later, or versions later, we managed to finish 2 extremely complicated seasons without any toll on human lives or health. Well, without any negative toll on it, because effects of this were only positive. When people ask me why we did it, I always say it's not because I'm not going to name the country, but in one country, when I was trying to persuade them that we should play football, their officer, local authorities said, you know what, UEFA should consider stop pushing the ball around. And then I said something that later on it just came out of me, but I said it's not about these 22 that are pushing the ball around. For some of them, without mentioning any names, the world can stop turning for 500 years. They wouldn't even notice the amount of money and wealth they have. But only in my poor country, very small one, 40,000 people go every day to work in the football clubs. These cleaning ladies, washing ladies, the grass keepers, the administratives, 40,000 people and 40,000 families live out of football. If these 22 stop pushing the ball around, these 40,000 people will starve. So and then you can imagine how many more on a European level. So that is why, that was my motivation. We need to continue. First of all, football has a great psychological effect on the people. We brought them a sense of normality, feeling of normality, and we kept it throughout all 2 years.
Okay. So this was during COVID, like you mentioned, that you started to get involved with UEFA. But just like you mentioned, Croatia is just a small country. Zoran, I know you're a big-time doctor, but how did UEFA literally pick you out of that country to start contributing? And for those that aren't aware, can you just briefly explain UEFA and obviously the purposes of UEFA within the European landscape?
So UEFA is a governing body for European football. unlike some other sports, football, international football is a little bit different. So FIFA is, of course, the roof organization. But FIFA consists of confederations, and then each confederation has some actually great extent of independence in creating rules for competitions, and so on. And then national associations also, UEFA is governing body, but each and every of national associations have their own also independence in creating adjusting the rules and needs to the needs and the specificities of every country. Of course, all of us need to obey laws of the game, which are universal, but still you can implement different things, different protocols, and on different levels of competition. UEFA is governing body and central body for European football. It consists of 55 nations, 55 national associations. You may imagine that this is big richness that you talk about, also a big complication, because you can only imagine during COVID times with 55 different approaches to the COVID. It has been complicated to create the one document that fits all. And it's sometimes a problem to create regulations and documents. One size fits all. It's extremely kind of a complicated task, but we obviously manage. UEFA is also so in that sense, it's a governing body. It runs most important competitions in Europe, beside Euros, both women and men. But there are also Champions League, obviously known to almost every kid in the world, both men and the women. And then you have Europa League, Europa Conference League, which is Confederations League, or which was the recent one, and then you have all these competitions on a different level, starting with the age of 16 or even less. So we are running, there are more than 2,000, something like 2,500 matches played under UEFA umbrella every year. And our role is to set the same level of service, every service, for me personally, medical service in each of these 2,500 matches.
Good summarization. Exactly. There's more.
Exactly. But there is more. There are more other things. There is also, we run club competitions, national competitions like Nations League, recently new one, Women's Nations League, which I'm extremely proud of. So we are running a number of competitions on both national and club competitions on a European level.
And some stuff with the youth too, I never knew that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. So you have Youth Champions League, you have Youth Euros, you have Youth Tournaments. They start very early. You have, basically it used to be under 16, now it's under 17, which means that you have, European competitions on each and every level for both boys and girls.
Gotcha. Okay. Now going back, how did UEFA pluck you out of Croatia to then come to Switzerland to get this work, especially given with COVID-19 during that time, there was so much uncertainty. How did they choose you, and why do you think?
Obviously, I have grabbed Kairos by the hair, one, and two, UEFA was satisfied with my performance during COVID-19, because I served as COVID-19 also brought surgery to halt in a sense. So being a surgeon, that meant I had a lot of free time to work on that for some time, because even the hospitals, as you are aware, were stopped. All the elective surgery was stopped. We were only on call, only life-threatening conditions. But somebody who operated that much as I was operating, that gave me plenty of free time to work something on. And COVID-19 was a very good tool to keep me very, very busy for UEFA for 2 years. And then then happens this Euro 2020 that happened in 21. It's a very strange Euro in 10 different countries. So it was Euro 2020 that was due to the COVID postponed and played in 21. And that Euro, the UEFA realized they need a chief medical officer, and they offered me this based on my experience. Started with COVID. Based on my performance on COVID, because it was played in 10 different countries together with the Turkey, that was not the host country, but the camp for referees, base camp for referees was in Istanbul. So that meant 11 different countries in the COVID situation. You may only imagine, think how complicated was the border passing and traveling through it. And they asked me to take a role as a chief medical officer, then predominantly with this, but then it turned out this unfortunate incident with a happy end of Christian Eriksen dying on the pitch and successfully resuscitated. That brought up another importance of health, and then finally many other things like concussion. Then the UEFA realized they need a chief medical officer, and I was an easy pick because I was there.
Okay. And at the end, we're going to talk about kind of CPR, because that's certainly something, like you mentioned, present in the football world. And, we're trying to still bring more awareness to the importance of these important measures in place. So you have the role as the chief medical officer. Can you give me an idea, like, what is your day like? I know you talked about how obviously you're kind of overseeing, you still have your medical doctors within kind of running the show, your athletic trainers, but what's your actual responsibility on a day-to-day basis? I mean, right now you're talking to me, so you got a couple of hours to talk.
Yeah, no. I was, obviously there is plenty of them, and I would divide them in, so one of the biggest challenges is that me being a practical doctor for 30 years on the bench, facing all these medical regulations that we have in place that were extremely good, but were done by administration, to make them more practical. Because I always say, I mean, it's not a secret, something organization is as strong as the weakest chain. So I wanted to make sure that obviously these regulations were working on a high level competition, but I wanted to make sure that these regulations, the services, are working on a lowest level of competition. Because
and when you say lowest level of competition, does that mean youth? Is that
youth under 16? I mean, this is for me. First of all, I spent 10 years as a doctor of a youth team, so I understand all the problems there. 2, there will be no Luka Modric without young Luka Modric, and somebody actually brought him up in his career to be able to play at the age of 37 such a good football as he's performing. Obviously, beside natural talent and his parents family who gave him this, there was also somebody that was working with him and gave him all the possibilities that he used so well. So, and we have to, and for me also as a doctor, there is no difference between the health of Luka Modric and unknown under 16 player playing usually in some less exposed places of Europe, to be politically correct. Because these matches are usually not played on the biggest stadia, not played on the most accessible areas, let's put it this way. So it is actually first of my roles that I have taken as a personal goal is to make sure that these regulations are working and the same level of medical services is available to each and every individual playing in UEFA competitions, regardless boy or girl, regardless nationality or the place they are playing. UEFA has decades before me put in place something called minimum medical requirements, and that's something that should be present in each and every of these matches. But 30 years of the experience taught me that not always this level is at the same, this service is at the same level, because on paper it looked great, but in practice there were a lot of obstacles. So my role is to remove these obstacles, and I'm really glad that we are succeeding, not me personally, but my whole team, together with the support of everybody else, in this to make it, 1, simpler, and 2, available to everybody. So yeah, I have to say I have the understanding and support of the top management in that sense. Of course, that COVID and Eriksen have brought the attention to the importance of medicine in football as well. Not that I think that football is most important, that medicine is most important in football. Medicine should be support, but we should continue working what we do in our regular lives, protect the health and kind of a guarantee that the people that are playing football will have the same life expectancy and same life quality as everybody else.
And you talked about the medicine being equal for all, whether it's youth, women's, men's. I want you to be honest with me. How well do you think we're doing when it comes to the females having that medical attention that these men have, especially at these bigger tournaments, like you mentioned, the Champions League? Where are we at?
So I would say the medical service they have on this bigger levels is very good. But I also publicly apologize to women on a medical symposium that just happened, UEFA Medical Symposium, just happened like a couple of weeks ago, in the name of all of our male colleagues for underestimating the female football. We have to be aware that female football for a long time was in the shadow of the male football and was not developing. But in recent past decade, it has developed so big, so high, so fast that unfortunately medicine did not follow. We are now establishing a number of projects here to change this. There was one very, very good sentence that really got stuck in my mind, and that was said by one of our speakers on the UEFA Medical Symposium end of January in Frankfurt, and it says that everything that we know about football medicine come from men, and we have simply translated the learnings of the men football medicine done in research done on male to women. Not only that, usually the research is done previously up until recent couple of years, and there is a huge disparity between research available for men football and then for female football, because these earlier researches until recently we actually excluding women because of the hormonal changes can influence the result. But nobody actually thought about I'm really sorry. Thought about it. Look, wow, I'm excluding women because hormonal changes in menstrual cycle may influence this. Why don't we study this influence?
Right.
To the defense of these researches, women football was not such a big thing like even 10, 15 years ago. And now it's a big thing. And now we realize we know too little about the menstrual cycle. We now know too little about the female brain. There is such thing as a male and a female brain. We know too little about it. We obviously know some of the reasons that stay behind the increased number of not increased, but there is no increase. There was a wrong expression. The bigger number of injuries of ACL, anterior crucial ligament, in female football, because obviously that's biometrics or biomechanics of the female body. And we will probably never be able to bring down this to the equal, but we can do a lot to mitigate the number of these ACL injuries. And now we have just, when you ask me, that's one of my, also probably being father of two daughters, I'm very sensitive about women, yeah. And in that sense, that's one of the reasons why we put the female or women's professional football, but not only professional, women's footballers' health in one of our, say, key or goals or whatever.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, which I think many people are aware, the research is lacking, but we are steadily trying to do research, especially regarding to the hormonal, the menstrual periods. But regarding to like the pre-competition medical briefing, your role, and correct me if I'm wrong, is really to kind of read the briefing in advance of the match to the medical staff before the game. Is that process similar on both ends, women's and men's? And
yeah.
Is preparation time period the exact same?
So you actually touched two of my passions here in one sentence. One is this pre-match UEFA pre-match medical briefing, emergency medical briefing, And the other is my intention, my passion to make the level of medical services equal to everybody. So by these same regulations, there is no difference between the women's competition and men's competition at any level. Minimum medical requirements apply at the same level for everybody. We do have we call it MR plus, medical regulation plus. So we have for the even bigger competitions like the Euros, we have some additional medical requirements, but these are same for women's Euro and men's Euro. This is same. About the briefing. The briefing was a result of, when this Ericsson case happened, I was in a position, being chief medical officer of Euro, to use a 16 angle camera view on this, and I reviewed it many times. I also, I personally knew one of Croatian players that died in sleep. Ivan Turin, a goalkeeper, he died in Sweden. I knew him, and it was really part of my question, why is this happening? And though at the moment we still cannot say why is this happening, we don't know all science behind it. I reviewed many of the incidents because they are readily available on YouTube. I reviewed many of these incidents. And so one of the question is why doctors that usually perform perfectly in hospitals, emergencies, ambulances, emergency room, underperforming in the case of a sudden cardiac arrest. And then I realized that's because you don't expect it on a football pitch. When you go to the hospital, when you work in a hospital, you go there prepared that this will happen. Right. In the ambulance, you are prepared that it will happen. Besides the fact that usually being a doctor, somebody who calls you already knows something is wrong. And usually they tell you arrest or code red or code whatever. And you are usually, when you are running, you're already prepared something will happen. Well, in football, we realize that you are not prepared this is going to happen. Although you are trained for the reaction, you are not prepared. Then we also went there, why is that so? And then beside the fact that it's a completely different setup, like 70,000 people are watching you at the same time, probably a couple of billion more at the TV screens. You are on all the camera, you see the flashes going on, and you in front of yourself, you have a healthy young person that is still moving, breathing, because that is something that we are now trying to send the message to the doctors. You are eyewitnessing a sudden cardiac arrest. And that is completely different than anything that can happen to you in your professional life, because somebody suffers sudden cardiac arrest in front of your very eyes for some time, being it 20 to 30, 40 seconds. The only thing that is not working in that body is heart. The person can move, person tries to breathe, and as long as it goes, starts gasping. Person tries, has eyes open, brain is working for a couple of more seconds later on. And then person even tried to talk. So if you review some of these YouTube clips of these tragic incidents, you see that all this. So we use this to send a very simple and strong message, and that is that every collapse, because this is actually kind of a deceiving. It sends your mind to a completely different direction. So he is walking, he's trying to breathe, he's moving, has eye open, he's conscious. It's not sudden cardiac arrest. That's a normal process of thinking. And I realized that this can happen to me as well, or any of my colleagues. And we are judged by many, but something that is normal in human psychology, and that's denial. Well, this cannot be happening to me. The whole intention of the briefing it's very short briefing. It's not to doubt in the preparedness or knowledge or training of the teams. No, completely different. It's to tell them we trust in your training, but you should be aware that this might happen. And if it happens, we want you to think about it. Basically, to bring something from the back of your mind to the frontal cortex. So when it happens, at least somebody in the team of 6, 7 people that are there thinks about, well, this might be a sudden cardiac arrest. Also, we send a clear message now to all pitchside emergency team that every collapse, especially collapse without the physical contact, should and must be treated as a sudden cardiac arrest until proven otherwise. So when it happens, start CPR immediately, because we are talking about young, otherwise completely healthy people that have underwent so many medical examinations in the recent years. They're so healthy, and our success rate should be 100% or close. That's our aim. We should aim 100% saving them and bringing them back.
Presently, UEFA has 3 defibrillators, an advanced life support ambulance, and then you also have a pitchside tablet with medical review for every, they say, UEFA match. But then you also have the trainings of the staff, the volunteers, the teams. Could you just speak real briefly on the importance of each of those 3 things I mentioned, of how that is going to help with a cardiac arrest, from the defibrillator, the advanced life support, and then that on-side field tablet?
First of all, we should be aware that we are talking about 2 different categories. So on the football pitch, you have, as I said, young, healthy, otherwise healthy athletes who have undergone a number of serious medical examinations. You can pretty much exclude most of the other medical conditions that causes sudden cardiac arrest in other types of population, and we should be able to success in resuscitation 100%. We should be able. We are far from that, but that's our aim. We want to go there, this direction. To enable this, of course, the proper reaction of the team, you need somebody who knows what is happening. I usually say you need 3 things. You need defibrillator, you need the big bag valve mask, and you need the scoop or a stretcher to bring this person out of the pitch, and you need 1 person that knows what is happening. On UEFA matches, we have many more of these, because each team has to bring their own defibrillator. This is to guarantee that they have the defibrillator on the training sessions when there is no UEFA setup. They have their emergency bag and there are defibrillators. So each team in UEFA competitions, and that applies for under 17 boys and girls as well, needs to travel with their own bag, emergency bag, which we tell them what is in there or recommend. We cannot teach doctors medicine, but we recommend what should be there. They should have their own defibrillator. So at one point you have these 2 defibrillators, and then you also have a defibrillator of the pitchside emergency team that is put there by the UEFA minimum medical requirements. Then you have a 4th one in the ALS ambulance as well. And then you have a 5th one in the medical room for players. So there are actually more defibrillators there, readily available. That's one. But we are mixing here 2 things, I would say, but I can tell you have done your job perfectly because you did some inquiry. So congratulations. You are very well prepared for this talk. But you only mixed one thing that we just kickstarted in the 31st of January. And that's our campaign, the European campaign of the importance of CPR in a normal life outside of the pitch. To be doing this together with the European Resuscitation Council. So while on the pitch, we have done virtually anything possible, everything possible to make this work for the players, we realized that actually chances of you seeing somebody dying on the pitch are very, very slim. But chances of you seeing somebody experience sudden cardiac arrest, even somebody close to you, are very real, because it happens to 1 in 1,000 people. And and then also it's a well-known fact that it's actually bystander who saves lives. Reaction of the bystander. So we realized that just as we did the analysis of the cases, real life cases in football, if you do the analysis of real life cases in general normal life, you see that this proper timely reaction of the bystander is what usually misses. But this reaction can increase the survival rate by 2 or 3 times. And when you combine it with the defibrillator, automatic defibrillator, by 6 times. So only by CPR, every time in Europe only alone, we can save 100,000 lives a year. And that's why we started this campaign. It was basically, it has a very nice, the background is actually very, very nice in the sense that you have Eriksen case in which we show how good we are in football. And then you have case of Jeremias Ledesma, goalkeeper of Cadiz, that on the match in the Spanish league, Cadiz, I don't remember versus who, there is one of the supporters experienced sudden cardiac arrest. Behind his back starts the CPR. He runs to the bench of the team, grabs the defibrillator, runs back and throw it to the public. That was like an eye-opener for us because we as UEFA, in Europe at least, and I think generally speaking in the world, are in the possession of the strongest promotional tool, and that's football. And we have chosen to take the responsibility and promote something that is so easy, so politically correct, because sudden cardiac arrest can happen anybody, anytime, anywhere, and virtually everybody, even little kids, can help. And that's a message we are sending through this campaign. Remember because I'm sure that you during your upbringing, at least one educational occasion, have done it. For driver's licenses in elementary school, high school, university, you have done it. It was part of your education. The goal of this campaign is to remind you that you know what to do. Start CPR. Yeah. You can do it. Start doing it. You will not hurt. There is nothing mystical there. The only thing you can do, you can save more lives. And unfortunately, this can be somebody you love.
Now, I want to ask something because this might be a little controversial. You mentioned something about how Europeans, obviously they being very good. Do you feel that Europeans are a step ahead of this research from your experience and all the data you know, or?
So I would say, like States and Europe, we are on the blessed side of the world. We are on the blessed side of the world. And I'm not saying we are better. We are blessed. Because we are blessed that we have all these availabilities or possibilities to use. So I would say that the research part is actually United States is, at least in some areas of research, are the strongest part in the world because their medicine has a completely different setup than in Europe. And then also investment to research are so big that nobody can compare at the moment. But still, we are blessed. And it is our responsibility to pass this knowledge to everybody. So I did share everything that we have in Europe now with CONMEBOL, with South Americans who want to follow this path. Not that they're doing it on less quality or God forbid, but they want to use a good example. So we offer this good example and we are open to learn from somebody and follow the good example because everybody can be doing something else. So what we started now recently and on UEFA Medical Symposium, and I'm glad that UEFA initiated this, we had a FIFA meeting of the FIFA chief medical officers of FIFA, all FIFA confederations, and we started very open cooperation with FIFA and all confederations, exchanging views because, knowledge in medicine shouldn't be owned by any confederation or any organization. It's ownership of the world in every citizen of the world. And that's the goal. We want to share what we do good, not saying we're doing is this better. And if we are doing this better, it's not that we are because we are better, but because we have better circumstances and we are blessed. So the part of this blessing should be responsibility to share this knowledge with everybody else in the world.
Okay. And at that same medical symposium, y'all talked about, we hope that in the next symposium that some of the challenges that presented at that particular conference would be addressed in the future. Can you just briefly tell me what are some of the major challenges that you guys are currently working through, and what will it look like for UEFA to actually get those issues addressed, if that makes sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I would say that the biggest challenges that we are facing at the moment, for me personally, is of course women's health. One of the biggest challenges, it's women's health, one. And we have created a panel of experts that has the solely role to identify the topics we need to address. And we are, in a week or two, we are going to go out with the call for grants in research in women's health. And we have allocated a substantial amount of money, by saying we, I mean UEFA, for research in women's health. Including menstrual cycles, but not limited to it, because we also want to learn about LCA injuries and so on. Does the menstrual cycle, ACL injuries, does the menstrual cycle influence ACL injuries or not? Is there anything else? Another very big and also unfortunately controversial topic is the concussion and heading in football. And then finally, the one that is just behind the corner, but we are seriously working on this, is transgender participation of transgender athletes in football. And these are, I would say, these are, for me, biggest challenges at the moment. I think even bigger challenges are to work on the prevention or to say implementation of what we learned of some of the research. Like we have a UEFA injury study. UEFA injury studies, we just changed its name from UEFA Elite Club Injury Study to UEFA Injury Studies because it's outgrown the elite clubs, and it's now really became a proper series of studies of injuries in a number of different competitions and players. And we want to now implement the findings and learnings. We want to bring them to the practice. So one of my roles for the future in our strategy is translation of the research to the simple team doctor on the pitch and improving the health of the players.
Okay. Zoran, I know I'm past time, but finally, just because there are listeners that would like to eventually, especially obviously doctors, hold these higher roles. So to end it off, just a couple of questions. All in all, if you could spotlight one thing that seemed to really set your career up for success, and even now, what moment or person that had given you advice would that be?
Actually, it cannot be one thing. It's two things. My parents, father and mother, mother and father. I think that's what actually set up my career. I told you at the beginning, both of them were extremely people who came from a very simple families, in the sense that for example, my mom was waking up every morning at 4 a.m. to bring cattle to the lawn, and then after that bring cattle back, and then walked 10 kilometers to the high school, and she ended up. Her father being simple blacksmith on the countryside, and ended up being one of the most recognized academics in former Yugoslavia in the fields of sociology. Same thing goes for my father. He comes from a very simple family as well, and he became extremely successful mechanical engineer and with extremely successful international career on his side. They also taught both me and my brother, because they come from a very mixed background, because my mother comes from a Croatian Catholic family, while my father comes from a Bosnian Muslim family. Both brother and I were exposed to the multicultural, multi-ethnical, multi-religious upbringing and tolerance, because it would not be possible. The success of their lives and family would not be possible without the tolerance and without the willing to put yourself in the shoes of the other person, without willing to understand everything in that sense. How this apply to my work here? Easily. UEFA consists of 55 countries from obviously very wide spectrum of the cultural, religious, civilizational level, even. I hate calling it levels, but sides, let's put it this way, because levels imply that one is higher or better than the others. Some are extremely democratical or extremely concerned about human rights. Some are extremely not concerned about this. So this is, and then there are all these in between. My role is here, and the role of UEFA, role of medical unit, is try to find something that works for the benefit of health of each and every player in Europe, but also in this planet, which is, to be honest, far easier than somebody doing something political, because medicine is universal and our wish to save lives and protect health is universal. So it's far easier than in some other sides of a political spectrum.
Okay, well, what if a sports medicine doctor doesn't have those qualities that your parents had that bestowed it upon you, but they really want to just get to pick your brain about how they can start where they're at now, whether that means they're in residency, they are working for a small youth team. What can they do to set themselves up to eventually work for, whether it's a national team or work for an organization like UEFA? What qualities sets these physicians apart?
Love.
Oh, that's good.
Love. Only love. Love for what you do. That's what you need to do. If you love what you're doing enough, if you are willing to sacrifice, because if you want to earn big money in sports medicine, sorry to break you bad news, no big money there. It's mostly love. So I would say if you're doing it for love, if you are willing to grow with it, if you are open to new findings, and never forget, very important thing, you are medical doctor. You are not there to protect the result of your team. You are there to protect the health of your players. I usually said to the national team doctors, national team players, when we were talking about it, and we were sometimes confronted because they wanted to play on Saturday, and to national team head coaches, I said, if you think I'm here to make this player play on Saturday, you're completely wrong. I'm here to make this player walk in 70 years from now.
That's right. I like that. Love.
Love. Exactly. Love. Never forget that you are a medical doctor. Never forget that you have to be honest, because your truth will set you free in a sense, but not set you free. Your truth will defend you, because if you say the truth, no matter what, if you stick to your beliefs, if you stick to your expertise, if you say, no, this player is not able to play, this player won't be playing on Saturday without the substantial risk to decrease, to seriously decrease his health or risk his health. And if you stick to this, no matter what kind of a pressure you are exposed to, you will earn the respect. Because on the short run, if you say, yeah, this player can play on Saturday, and then you make compromises in that sense, sooner or later, there will be a number of players who will get injured more than you know, and then more than you want, and then nobody will respect you anymore. So no compromise with one thing, and that's health.
I like that. So I'm going to finish it off with love. Going into sports medicine, it's not about the money, it's about love. And I got to say, you got to have loved working for the Croatian national team when y'all went, or you made your furthest push to the World Cup, finishing second place in 2018. Yeah.
I was there. You know, very often I kind of ask myself, what kind of you always say, like in medicine, if it was a final of a World Cup, maybe. But what would I do if it was a final of the World Cup? No, but now I know the answer. And I'm glad that I managed to keep the consistency and integrity as a doctor and as a human being over these 30 years of career. And I think that finally this long run brought me here, because that's something you can expect of me. It's integrity and consistency, and I'll tell you the truth, regardless and no matter what.
And that was Dr. Bahtijarević. Now, don't forget to rate and give me your thoughts.